The email arrived at 8:47 p.m., right in the middle of my father's Christmas prayer. Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your parents. Unknown sender. No subject. Just those two sentences that made my stomach churn as my family finished saying amen around the table decorated with red and gold candles. I kept my phone discreetly on my lap, rereading the message while my mother served the turkey. The candlelight danced on Grandma's porcelain plates, the same dishes we had used every Christmas for as long as I could remember. Everything seemed perfectly normal. My father was carving the meat with his typical host's smile. My younger sister, Amanda, complaining that the potatoes were too salty. My mother running from the kitchen to the table, making sure everyone had enough napkins. An ordinary Christmas dinner. Except for the anonymous email telling me to run away. My name is Peter, and at 32, I work as a software engineer at a digital security company in Seattle. I spend my days creating systems to protect against fraud and cyber attacks. Ironic, considering I apparently needed protection in the house where I grew up. I haven't had a drop of alcohol since I was 25. My body just doesn't process it well. 2 beers and I'm completely out. My family has always known this, but they never really accepted it. Every family event was accompanied by constant pressure to relax a little or be less uptight. This time, when I arrived for dinner, my mother had prepared cranberry punch. No alcohol, I promise, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I made it especially with you in mind. The glass was in front of me now, untouched, the dark red liquid reflecting the candlelight like blood. I looked around the table. My parents were chatting animatedly about the new neighbors. Amanda was fiddling with her phone, pretending to pay attention. Everything was absolutely routine. Except that no one else had punch. Only me. And except for the email that kept flashing on my phone screen. For years, I was the responsible older brother. The one who helped Amanda with her college tuition when she spent all her allowance on clothes. The one who lent my parents money when Dad's business hit hard times. The one who never questioned when they needed just a little help. Until 6 months ago, when I found out Amanda had racked up a $15,000 debt playing online poker. $15,000 she wanted me to cover to save her career in finance. For the first time in my life, I said no. The silence that followed lasted 3 weeks. Then came the casual messages, the invitations to family dinners, the gradual attempt to normalize things. As if nothing had happened. Peter dear, aren't you going to try the punch? My mother looked at me with that worried expression I had known since I was a child. I spent all afternoon making it. I picked up the glass and swirled the liquid gently. The aroma was strange. Too sweet. With a metallic undertone that made my throat tighten. Sure, Mom. I was just waiting for you to help yourselves. She exchanged a quick glance with my father. Almost imperceptible. Almost. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a seemingly innocent Christmas dinner would turn into the most disturbing revelation of my life. My phone vibrated again. A second message from the same unknown sender. Don't drink anything. They need you to pass out. I pretended to read work messages while watching my family. 27 years of being the responsible brother had taught me to read signs that others would ignore. My father carved the turkey with very deliberate movements, but his eyes darted to my glass every few seconds. My mother kept getting up to check on dessert in the kitchen, always passing behind my chair. Amanda had finally put down her phone and was now paying full attention to the conversation, something she hadn't done since she turned 16. Remember when you were little and hated cranberry? My mother asked, forcing a nostalgic laugh. Now look at you, I made sure to make it especially for you. She was lying. I'd always liked cranberry. But they needed a narrative that justified why only I got the special punch. The third message arrived while my father was telling a story about work that I'd heard 3 times before. It's Amanda. She told me everything. Please trust me. Amanda. The 25-year-old sister I helped support through college. Who never worked a day in her life while I paid her bills. Who racked up $15,000 in online poker debts and expected me to cover it all, because family helps family. 6 months ago, when I found out about her gambling addiction, she cried for 2 hours in my apartment. Not out of regret, but out of frustration that I refused to solve yet another one of her problems. You don't understand, Peter, she had said. tears streaming down the expensive makeup I had indirectly financed. If my boss finds out I'm in debt to loan sharks, I'll lose my job. And if I lose my job, I'll never get another one in finance. Then maybe you should have thought about that before betting half a year's salary on a virtual poker table, I replied. It was the first time in my life I had said no to my family. The first time I didn't automatically open my wallet when they held out their hands. The silence that followed lasted exactly 21 days. 21 days without calls, messages, or invitations. It was as if I had ceased to exist the moment I ceased to be useful. Then came the attempts at reconciliation. Casual messages from my mother about the weather. Memes from my father. TikTok links from Amanda with no comments. All carefully calculated to appear spontaneous. The invitation to dinner arrived 3 weeks ago, along with a message from my mother, "We miss you. How about spending Christmas together? Like a real family." Like a real family. As if the last 27 years of financial exploitation didn't count. I grew up believing it was normal to be the family bank. That older siblings naturally paid for their younger siblings' bills. That successful children automatically became responsible for their parents. At 16, I got my first part-time job at an electronics store. My first paycheck went entirely toward Amanda's needs: school supplies, clothes, outings with friends. When I questioned it, my parents patiently explained that family is about sharing. At 18, I won a partial scholarship to study engineering. I worked 40 hours a week to cover what the scholarship didn't pay, plus 20 hours of overtime to send money home. Amanda was in high school, but she had already established a standard of living that depended on my monthly contribution. When I graduated and got my first job in Seattle, the pressure only increased. "Now that you're making good money," my mother would say, "you can help with Amanda's college tuition." She chose a private university because they have an excellent finance program. $58,000 a year. Plus room, board, books, and the basic expenses of a young college girl. Amanda was studying finance but never learned how to manage her own. Every promotion at my job meant new family expectations. Every pay raise translated into additional responsibilities for their spending. There was never a conversation about when this would end. It was simply assumed that it would be forever. Until 6 months ago, when I discovered that Amanda wasn't just spending my money irresponsibly, she was losing large sums of it on online gambling. It was just a phase, she tried to explain when I confronted her with the bank statements. I was stressed out with my new job. Online poker was a way to relax. $15,000 to relax. More than many people earn in an entire year. But what really broke me wasn't the amount. It was discovering that she had been lying for months about where the money was going. She had created an elaborate web of excuses, extra classes, equipment for work, made-up medical emergencies, all to hide the fact that she was gambling compulsively. "Peter," my father had said in the only serious conversation we had about it, "you've always been the responsible brother. Amanda made a mistake, but she's learned her lesson. We can't let her go under because of one slip-up." A $15,000 slip-up. Now, looking around the Christmas table, I understood that they hadn't accepted my refusal. They had just changed their strategy. The fourth message arrived when my mother got up to bring dessert. "They're going to try to use your fingerprint to access your accounts while you're unconscious. Amanda has your bank details. Please leave now." My hand trembled imperceptibly as I read the message. Amanda has my bank details. Of course she did. I had set up her account myself when she started college, setting up automatic monthly transfers that had been going for 6 years. "Peter dear," my mother said, returning from the kitchen with a steaming apple pie, "you've hardly touched your punch. Does it taste bad?" Her eyes studied me with an intensity that didn't match the casual question. Dad had stopped chewing and was watching my reaction. Even Amanda looked up from her phone, waiting for my response. "No, it's delicious," I lied, swirling the liquid in my glass. "I'm just savoring it." A relieved smile crossed my mother's face. "Good. I made it from your grandmother's special Christmas recipe." Lie. Grandma never made cranberry punch in her life. She hated the fruit, said it was too sour for festive occasions. Little lies. Inconsistent details. The kind of thing I would notice in a compromised security system, but ignored at the dinner table because they were my parents. The fifth message arrived as I pretended to cut a piece of turkey. They put something in the punch. Probably Ambien. You'll pass out in 20 minutes if you drink it. Amanda is desperate. She owes way more than $15,000. Way more than $15,000. My stomach dropped. 6 months ago, when I confronted Amanda about her poker debts, she cried for 2 hours, begging for help. She said it was only $15,000, an amount she could easily pay back with my new salary. But if she was lying about that, about how much she really owed. I closed my eyes for a second, remembering the conversation. She had been strangely specific about some details, the name of the poker site, the dates of the losses, even the times of the sessions. But vague about other crucial elements, who the creditors were, how long she had to pay, what kind of consequences she would face. At the time, I interpreted this as shame. Now I realize they were the calculated omissions of someone hiding the true extent of the problem. Peter. Dad looked at me with feigned concern. Are you okay? You look pale. Just tired, I replied. Tough week at work. Work, Amanda said, finally joining the conversation. How's that banking security project you mentioned? It must be pretty complex dealing with digital fraud. Digital fraud. She had never shown any interest in my work before. Now she was asking specifically about banking systems on the same night they planned to access my account. It's interesting, I replied carefully. Most people don't realize how many layers of protection there are these days. Multi-factor authentication, biometric verification, real-time alerts. Mom and Dad exchanged another quick glance. Amanda bit her lower lip, a nervous tic she'd had since childhood when she lied. The sixth message vibrated discreetly. Peter, please trust me. They're going to use your fingerprint while you're unconscious. Mom saved your banking information from when I helped her with her taxes. You need to get out now. Tax bank information. 3 years ago, when Mom insisted on helping me with my taxes to save money on an accountant, she had access to all my financial statements. Routing numbers, account numbers, transaction history. At the time, I appreciated the help. I work 60 hours a week, so anything that took tasks off my plate was welcome. I didn't question why she kept copies of everything for future reference. Now I understood that it was no coincidence that she offered to help the very year I got my biggest promotion, when my salary doubled and I started investing seriously. You know, Mom said, as if reading my mind, I remember when you started working in technology. You were so young, you could barely balance your checkbook. Now look at you, investments, a savings account, that beautiful apartment. You've become very successful, Dad added. Sometimes I wonder if we forgot to celebrate your accomplishments properly. Amanda nodded vigorously. That's true. You've always been the responsible brother, but we never really acknowledged that. They were psyching me in, reinforcing my identity as the generous brother, before robbing me blind. Like a well-executed social engineering scam, you establish trust, reinforce positive behavioral patterns, then exploit the vulnerabilities you've uncovered. It was exactly the kind of manipulation we taught our clients to identify and avoid. The seventh message arrived. They've been planning this for weeks. I've heard talk of solving the Peter problem once and for all. Amanda owes over $50,000. If she doesn't pay by January, she'll face serious consequences. $50,000. 3 times more than she had admitted. More than I earned in a year when I started my career. More than many people see in a lifetime. And serious consequences meant loan sharks. People who don't accept payment plans or creative excuses. My engineer's mind began processing the data automatically. Amanda has been working in finance for 2 years, starting salary, probably $40,000 a year. After taxes, rent, basic expenses, she would barely be able to pay the minimum on a debt like that. And I've always been her first choice when she needed money. For 27 years, I never said no. Not once. School tuition, electronic gadgets, clothes, trips with friends, made-up medical emergencies. I always opened my wallet without question. I had created a behavioral precedent that they expected to continue forever. But 6 months ago, I broke the pattern. For the first time in my life, I set a limit. I said I would no longer cover her financial mistakes. Apparently, they interpreted this not as a final decision, but as a temporary obstacle to be overcome. Peter, Mom said softly, you haven't touched your dessert. And the punch is getting cold. I looked down at the dark red glass. The liquid had settled, leaving a whitish residue on the rim that was definitely not natural cranberry. Ambien. A powerful sedative. In high doses, it would cause deep unconsciousness for hours. Enough time to access my account, transfer $50,000, and put myself back on the couch as if nothing had happened. In the morning, I would wake up confused, with gaps in my memory, assuming I had drunk too much and transferred the money voluntarily during a moment of drunken generosity. The perfect plan. Except for one detail they hadn't anticipated. The 8th message arrived. Peter, if you're reading this, you need to pretend you're going to drink the punch but don't drink it. Act normal. Say you need to use the bathroom in 5 minutes. I'll call you when you're alone and explain everything. I took a deep breath. Around me, 3 people I had loved since childhood waited patiently for me to ingest a substance that would render me helpless so they could steal my bank account. These weren't strangers trying to pull a scam. It was my family. The family that raised me, protected me, supported me throughout my childhood and adolescence. The same family that was now conspiring to drug me at a Christmas dinner. You know, I began, picking up the glass and spinning it slowly. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I were a different person. Less responsible, more selfish. If I were the type who only thinks about himself. They watched me closely, waiting for me to bring the glass to my lips. But then I realized that wouldn't be me, would it? We're defined by the choices we make. And I've always chosen to help my family, no matter what. I raised my glass as if to make a toast. To family. To family, they repeated in unison, relieved smiles on their faces. I brought the glass to my lips, closed my eyes as if savoring the aroma, and pretended to take a long sip. The liquid didn't pass my sealed lips. I murmured, lowering the glass. It really is delicious, Mom. It tastes different. Sweeter than usual. That's the special touch, she said, clearly pleased. The special touch. 50 milligrams of Ambien dissolved in cranberry juice. Well, I think I'll use the bathroom real quick, I announced, leaving the glass almost empty on the table. I'll be right back. No one protested. Why would they? In a few minutes, they would be free to execute the final plan. Climbing the stairs had never seemed so surreal. Each step was a conscious decision not to confront them immediately, not to explode, not to yell that I knew exactly what they were doing. I closed the bathroom door, locked it, sat on the edge of the bathtub, and waited for the phone to ring. 3 rings. Hello. Peter, thank God you answered. Amanda's boyfriend Jason's voice was heavy with tension. Are you okay? You didn't drink anything, right? No. I sat on the edge of the tub, processing that it was Jason warning me. How do you know about the punch? Because I helped Amanda get the Ambien. My stomach dropped. You what? Listen, it wasn't supposed to be like this. She told me you had trouble sleeping and wanted a natural way to relax during the holidays. She said you asked her to get something mild. An elaborate lie. Typical Amanda, using people close to her as unwitting tools. How much did she tell you about her real financial situation? Prolonged silence. She said it was $15,000. Jason, she owes over $50,000. To loan sharks. And if she doesn't pay by January. $50,000? Her voice was almost inaudible. She told me. Jesus Christ, Peter, she told me it was credit card debt. Impulse buying after graduation. No. It's an online poker addiction. Serious, for over 2 years. I heard him take several deep breaths. I thought you were just helping her relax while she talked about a normal family loan. She said you were going to discuss a payment plan. The plan was to drug me, use my fingerprint to access my bank account, and transfer $50,000 while I was unconscious. Oh my God. Long pause. Peter, I swear I didn't know. When I found out what was really going on, it was by accident. I overheard her and her parents talking last night about dealing with the Peter problem once and for all, and using his fingerprint. That's when I realized it wasn't about helping you sleep. That's why the anonymous emails. I created a temporary account. I didn't want them to trace it back to me, but I couldn't let this happen either. I took a deep breath, my engineer's mind already organizing the information. Jason, I need you to tell me everything. Every detail you know. Over the next 10 minutes, he told me about conversations he had overheard, documents he had seen Amanda hiding, whispered phone calls she made late at night. A pattern of behavior that extended far beyond the $15,000 she had admitted to. She mentioned something about physical consequences if she didn't pay by January 15th, Jason said. And about how you've always been the family bank, and never knew how to say no. Until 6 months ago. Exactly. She was furious when you refused to cover the debts. She said you were being selfish, that families should always help each other. The conversation was revealing in ways I hadn't expected. Amanda hadn't simply hidden the true extent of the debts, she had constructed an entirely fictional narrative about my personality and our family relationship. Peter, Jason continued, there's one more thing. I overheard her talking to someone on the phone about having access to your bank account for years. Something about when your mother helped with her taxes. 3 years ago. When Mom insisted on helping with my tax return. She had photographed all my bank statements, claiming she needed them for routine checks. At the time, I didn't question it. Family helps family, right? Now I realized it was strategic recognition. They mapped out my finances completely, checking accounts, savings accounts, investments, even my emergency fund. Listen, Jason, I have to get off in a few minutes or they'll get suspicious. But first, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Do you still have access to Amanda's apartment? I have the keys. Why? I need you to look for documents related to her debts. Contracts, printed emails, any physical evidence. And if possible, record future conversations on the subject. Peter, this is protecting both of us from a family willing to commit serious crimes to solve financial problems. Jason, they slipped sedatives into my drink at Christmas dinner. This isn't a normal family argument. Pause. You're right. I'll look for the documents. I hung up and sat there for a few minutes, organizing my strategy. As a digital security expert, I understood perfectly how insider attacks work. Someone with legitimate access to the system exploits privileges to cause damage. My family had legitimate access to my trust, my home, my habits. They were using that access to plan a crime. But they made one fundamental mistake. They assumed I was technologically passive. I grabbed my phone and opened my banking app. In less than 3 minutes, I changed all my security settings. I enabled real two-factor authentication, not SMS, but app-based authentication that they couldn't intercept. I set up immediate alerts for any login attempts, any transactions over $100. Then I enabled background audio recording, a feature I developed to test privacy vulnerabilities that worked without visible interfaces. Subscribe to the channel to see how technical knowledge can be your greatest weapon against those who underestimate your intelligence. Their plan was elegant in its simplicity. Drug me, use my fingerprint to unlock my phone, access the banking app, and transfer money. They assumed I had basic security settings. Fatal mistake. I returned to the table exactly 9 minutes later. Enough time to seem natural, not enough to raise suspicion. Sorry I'm late, I said, sitting down. Work call. On Christmas? Dad asked, but his eyes were focused on my nearly empty glass. Server emergency. I picked up the glass and pretended to take another sip. At least I was able to resolve it quickly. That's good, my mom said. Now you can focus on relaxing with the family. Relax. Interesting word considering they planned to render me unconscious. Actually, I continued, setting my glass down a little harder than necessary, I'm feeling a little strange. Maybe this punch is stronger than I thought. Immediate smiles crossed their faces. The rest of the supper passed in deliberate slow motion. I feigned increasing drowsiness as they became more animated, more solicitous. They offered to let me lie down on the couch, just to rest a little. They suggested I take a nap while they cleared the table. Each offer confirmed the plan. At 10:15, I pretended the sedative was taking full effect. I let my head droop slightly, blinked more slowly, let my speech become slightly slurred. I need to lie down for a little while, I murmured. They helped me to the sofa with exaggerated care, as if I were made of glass. They put a blanket over my legs and adjusted a pillow behind my head. "Sleep tight, dear," my mother said, stroking my hair as she did when I was a child. "We'll take care of everything." Yes. They would take care of everything. I closed my eyes and regulated my breathing to simulate deep sleep. At the same time, my phone recorded every whispered word, every movement around me. They waited exactly 7 minutes before beginning. "He's out," my mother whispered, her voice heavy with relief and something that sounded like satisfaction. Deep breathing. He didn't move even when I adjusted the blanket. I kept my breathing steady, my muscles relaxed, every fiber of my body focused on appearing completely unconscious. The couch was too comfortable for the situation, soft cushions that would normally calm me now making me question every involuntary movement. "How much time do we have?" Dad asked, his voice lower than usual. "At least 4 hours," Amanda replied with a confidence that sent a chill down my spine. "It could be as long as 6, depending on how much body weight he's gained since last time." Last time. She had drugged me before. My mind raced through recent memories, searching for signs I had missed. Family dinners where I woke up on the couch with no memory of dozing off. Nights where I came home from visiting and felt inexplicably exhausted. Moments of confusion I attributed to work stress. How many times had they done this before? "Take his phone," my mother instructed. "Be careful not to squeeze his hand too tightly." I felt cold fingers wrap around my wrist, lifting my right hand with the delicacy of someone handling fragile crystal. My thumb was gently pressed against the screen of my phone. A soft vibration. "Unlocked." "Perfect," Amanda murmured. "Now let's see, bank app. Here." The sound of tapping on the screen. Pause. "Shit," she said, her voice losing all previous composure. "It's asking for additional authentication." "What do you mean?" Dad approached, his footsteps making the floorboards creak slightly. "There's a new screen I've never seen before. Identity verification required for transactions over $100. Please enter the code sent to your registered authenticator device." Absolute silence. I could feel the tension building in the air like electricity before a storm. "What authenticator device?" my mother asked, her voice beginning to show signs of panic. "I don't know. He must have changed the settings recently." Recently. Like exactly 3 hours ago, when I was locked in the bathroom setting up my own trap. "Try other apps," Dad suggested. "Investments, savings, maybe they don't have the same protection." Frantic ringing. Pause. More ringing. Same thing on all of them. They're all asking for two-factor authentication. Amanda was starting to sound desperate. He must have suspected something. Why would he change all the settings at once? "Or maybe," a fourth voice said from the hallway, "he always knew you were thieves." My eyes flew open. Jason was standing in the doorway, holding his phone in the air, clearly recording. My family froze like statues. Amanda was still holding my phone. Dad had one of my hands in his, thumb positioned over the screen. Mom was hunched over the couch, watching the operation. "Jason," Amanda stammered, "you don't understand, we were just drugging and robbing Peter." Jason finished, slowly approaching. "Because that's exactly what I just recorded for the last 10 minutes. I took a deep breath and sat up slowly, feigning growing confusion. What is going on here?" The look on Amanda's face was the perfect definition of terror. Not terror of being caught, but terror of realizing she had been outsmarted by someone she had always underestimated. "Peter," my mother tried, reaching out as if to calm a wounded animal, "you are having nightmares, dear. We were just checking to see if you were okay." "Checking," I repeated slowly, staring at my phone still in Amanda's hands, using my fingerprint to access my bank account. Dad let go of my hand as if it had burned him. "This isn't what it looks like." "No." I stood up slowly, adjusting the blanket. "Because it looks like the three of you conspired to drug me, knock me unconscious, and steal $50,000 from my account to cover Amanda's gambling debts." The silence was deafening. "And before you try to deny it," I continued, taking my phone back from Amanda's trembling hands, "I recorded the whole thing." I tapped the recording app, where a 43-minute file showed a clearly visible audio waveform. "How much time do we have?" I quoted, imitating Dad's voice. At least 4 hours. It could be as long as 6, depending on how much body weight he's gained since last time. Dad turned pale. Peter, we can explain. Last time, I repeated, my voice taking on a harshness I'd never used with my family. How many times have you drugged me before? How many times have I woken up on your couch with no memory of how I got there? Amanda finally spoke, her voice a broken whisper. Peter, I need that money. You don't understand the situation I'm in. $50,000 to loan sharks, I said calmly. Not $15,000 in credit card debt like you lied about 6 months ago. $50,000 you lost gambling compulsively on online poker for 2 years. Her eyes widened. How did you? Did Jason tell you? Jason saved me, I corrected. He warned me about your plan before I drank the punch with Ambien. My mother sat down heavily in an armchair, as if her legs had given way. We never meant to hurt you, Peter. We just needed. You needed to rob me, I interrupted. At Christmas dinner. After drugging me. Using my own fingerprint against me. It wasn't robbery, Dad tried to argue, his voice sounding desperate. It was a family loan. You always helped Amanda before. I always helped when she asked. Never when she was stealing from me. I grabbed my coat from where I had left it on the chair. You know this is a federal crime, right? Drugging someone, using biometrics without consent, attempted bank fraud, conspiracy. You're not going to call the police on your own family, my mother said, but her voice didn't carry any conviction. Family, I repeated, testing the word on my tongue as if it were foreign. Family doesn't drug family. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't lie for 2 years about a gambling addiction. Amanda started to cry. Not the performative tears she used when she wanted money, but genuine sobs from someone who finally understood the real consequences of her actions. Peter, please, she begged. If I don't pay by January. You should have thought of that before betting $50,000, I replied, putting on my coat. And you definitely should have thought of that before trying to drug and rob me. Jason approached, still holding the cell phone. Do you want me to stop recording? No, I said without hesitation. I want complete evidence. I walked to the door, stopped, and turned around one last time. 3 people I had loved unconditionally for 27 years looked at me with a mixture of fear, despair, and ironically surprise. As if they had never imagined that I could react, plan, or defend myself. You know, I said calmly, all these years paying Amanda's bills, covering your loans, being the responsible brother, I thought I was being a good son. A good brother. I opened the door. Now I realize I was just allowing you to become what you are today. People willing to drug and steal from their own family. Peter, wait, Dad stood up, taking a step toward me. No, I said firmly. 27 years of waiting. It's over. I walked out of the house where I grew up, Jason following me in silence. When we got to my car, my hands finally started to shake. Are you okay? Jason asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I know that for the first time in my life, I'm not a victim anymore. My phone vibrated. A notification from my banking app, login attempt detected at 10:47. Access denied due to mandatory 2-factor authentication. I showed the screen to Jason. They really tried. Until the very last second, he confirmed. Even after they realized you were awake. I started the car and drove to the nearest police station. In the back seat, Jason organized the 2 videos he had recorded, the confrontation in the living room and the full confession that followed. Peter, he said as I stopped at a red light, can I ask you a question? Sure. How did you know they were going to try that? I smiled for the first time in hours. Because I work in digital security, Jason. I spend my days studying how people attack systems that trust them. And I realize that for my entire life, they've treated me exactly like a vulnerable system, with easy access, minimal protections, and a history of never resisting attacks. So you set a trap. Not a trap. A security upgrade they never expected. The light turned green and I kept driving, but something had fundamentally changed. I wasn't running away from home anymore. I was heading toward a future where I would never again be underestimated by my own family. or by anyone else. The police station at 11 o'clock on Christmas night looked like something out of a film noir. Flashing fluorescent lights, stale coffee in the air, and me sitting in a hard plastic chair telling Detective Morrison how my own family had conspired to drug and rob me. "So let me get this straight," he said, reviewing my evidence for the third time. "They slipped Ambien into your punch, tried to use your fingerprint to access your bank account, and you recorded everything?" "That's correct. Including the login attempts that were blocked by the system I set up specifically for that purpose." Morrison shook his head. "In 22 years on the force, I've never seen anything like this at a Christmas dinner." The charges were filed the next morning: conspiracy to commit fraud, non-consensual administration of a controlled substance, attempted identity theft, and misuse of biometric data. Federal crimes carrying penalties ranging from 2 to 10 years in prison. My parents accepted a plea bargain: 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, a $20,000 fine, and a restraining order prohibiting them from contacting me. Amanda faced more serious charges due to her gambling history and debts to loan sharks. She received 3 years probation and was required to attend treatment for gambling addiction. I changed my phone number on January 2nd. I moved in February. I rewrote my will, removing all family members as beneficiaries. I froze my credit and implemented real-time identity monitoring. Jason reached out to me a week after the trial. "How are you dealing with everything?" "Better than I thought I would," I replied honestly. For the first time in 27 years, I opened my refrigerator knowing that everything inside was purchased by me for me. No one else has access to my accounts, my home, or my peace of mind. "Don't you miss them?" I thought carefully before answering. I miss the idea of them. The family I thought I had. But the real family, people willing to drug me at Christmas dinner to steal my bank account? No. That family never existed. 6 months later, I received a card in the mail. Amanda, writing from rehab. "Peter, I know I can never undo what I did. But I want you to know that treatment has helped me understand how I got to that point. Your setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was the only way to force me to face reality. I hope that one day you can forgive me." I put the card in a drawer and never replied. Forgiveness is a personal choice, not a family obligation. Today, 2 years later, I work at a new company where no one knows my family history. I have friends who invite me to dinner because they enjoy my company, not because they need a loan. I'm dating an amazing woman who pays her own bills and has never asked me for a penny. Last week, I drove past the house where I grew up. There was a "for sale" sign in the front yard. I later learned that my parents had moved into a smaller apartment, trying to start over after the legal costs and fines. I felt neither pity nor satisfaction. Just the quiet understanding that some bridges need to be burned so you can find better paths. The biggest lesson I learned? Family isn't defined by DNA or last names. It's defined by respect, trust, and genuine love. For decades, I confused exploitation with closeness, manipulation with affection. Setting boundaries didn't make me a cold person, it made me a free one. 3 weeks ago, Jason called me with surprising news. Amanda had landed a job at a non-profit organization that helps people with gambling addictions. The pay was modest, but the work was meaningful. She said she finally understood the difference between being helped and being empowered, he told me. Maybe that was the real victory. Not destroying people who hurt me, but forcing them to confront the real consequences of their actions. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see someone who has learned that saying no isn't selfish, it's self-respect. That real families celebrate each other's successes instead of exploiting them. That sometimes the greatest kindness you can offer is to refuse to be a victim. If this story of transformation and empowerment has touched you, subscribe to the channel for more stories about how ordinary people found the strength to change their lives and set the boundaries they deserve. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you, it's building a life so good they'll never have access to it.